Record. Mic trigger.
Well, guys, after asking about decent albums, rubbish albums, maybe I'm gonna talk about god-awful albums that just ain't worth the money. Now, before I start lists, these probably have ended up in people's playlists, and as I've said in the last previous videos, if you enjoy them, then so be it. However, these are albums that I just really don't enjoy and can't stand. And again, these are 6 top albums in the list. And let's get into it then. So, at number 6, I'm going to stick Guns N' Roses, the album that they did in 2009. Terrible album. It just had, literally all the songs just unlistenable. Didn't have Slash on it. Buckethead was on there. That's why it's so high on the list, because the guitar playing was okay, but didn't have all the Guns N' Roses members. Axl Rose was just auto-tuned for the entire album, and because of that, it was just a disappointment. I mean, as much as you read about Guns N' Roses at the time, as much as you read, they were in the studio for 3 or 4 years. I think by that time, hadn't fans got bored and moved on? That's all I can say. And if that's all I can say, then, oh my goodness, what is that going to say about the rest of everything else? That I have to add and have to say, because seriously, isn't this when Guns N' Roses got tired? Oh, and by the way, this is after we read about the ludicrous shows of Axl Rose. This is when Axl Rose stopped being the guy who made riots every show. This is when he became ridiculous and got helicopters in, and every show was like a James Bond performance. Anyway, with that said, I think we can leave this album on the shelf, and it's best stayed left there. And so it should have done. Now, at number 5, I'm going to add in a The Prodigy album, because someone commented on the rubbish albums list about The Prodigy. And I obviously understand that this was on the iTunes store at the time. And yeah, I can understand that. Like, there's only 3 good tunes on the album. What does that say? It's not like the old The Prodigy albums where you get into it later on. No, this album, those 3 tunes, you can only enjoy those 3 tunes, and that's it. What's the point of getting an album if all you're going to enjoy is 3 brilliant tunes, which should have been on the list of rubbish albums, pointless enough to never even get? If it's only those 3 tunes you're only going to enjoy, you're best buying a compilation album, more worth your money. Anyway, moving on, boys and girls, moving on. Because in at number 4, we've got an ELO album on the list. Now, I've heard this album and I think this is absolutely ludicrous. This is a joke. This is a punchline to a joke, to a very good joke at that, because it's called Subliminal Messages. Now, this is when everybody was getting pissed off, including myself, with the Mothers Union, the demetalling, the Bible Belt. The list is endless, right? And what was the subliminal message that ELO said? Stop doing this. The whole album was full of backmasked messages, which were just crap and insane and just, and literally like backmasking now and hidden messages. Yes, we've got the technology to do it, but back then, all you had in the studio was an 8-track tape recorder. And I've watched a documentary that's absolutely laughable all the way through. It was also at the point when ELO were not doing very well and they were getting pretty hacked off with things anyway. And Jeff Lynne was getting bombarded with all kinds of stuff. So, hats off to making an album that literally put the lid on that sort of situation. So, yeah. But in all fairness, I think this album just needs to be left on the shelf. I think if you are from the Mothers Union, you should buy it for somebody who's all in favour of censoring what you listen to, or what your kids listening to, all that stuff. Anyway, so yeah, and we're going to move on to number 3, and at number 3. Yeah, I think I'm going to stick in here, since we're at the top 3. I'm going to stick in Metallica's Garage Inc. Oh dear, Metallica have got on the list of just albums you shouldn't buy. Now, hear me out, right? This album could have been a good album, right? This album could have been a good album, but there's only 2 songs that are great. What does that say? Only 2 good songs. But again, right? Metallica do these songs better live. And I've said this before, if you can do these songs better live, then what does that say? What does that say? You're trying to, the fans are going to forgive you. But seriously, I mean, this is an album that was a covers album, and covers albums are they're a bit of a sticky topic. They're best of times, and there's only a few bands that can pull them off. Yes, Metallica can pull off a Motorhead song, and Motorhead can pull off a Metallica song, and maybe I might just do another really good albums, or recommended albums, at least, because I know Motorhead would get on there anyway. So, but another thing that I think needs to be noted to death is that, this isn't the worst album on the list by far, but it's an album that should be left on the shelf. It's an album that would be a waste of money if you were to buy it on iTunes, or if you were to buy it on Amazon, or if you were to buy it anywhere else that's not like a streaming service. And it's just a complete waste of money and a complete I wouldn't say complete waste of a listen, because Metallica are having the jam of their lives. Metallica were having fun with this album. Which there's no harm with. And they love doing this album. And yeah, I didn't want to put the new stuff on the list because they're recycling their old stuff. And I just want to say, I wish they wouldn't do that. I would like to see Metallica just do an acoustic album of new songs. Like, they could get away with doing power ballads. They could. Metallica are the band that just got away with literally everything, and they've got away with doing thrash. They've got away with doing new metal, prog rock, classic rock. I think if Metallica put out a dance record, they would just get away with that as well, I think. Because they're that sort of band that the fans would literally, because Metallica can do these songs live pretty well, and they still play really good live. And if you're a band that plays really good live, then you shouldn't need to worry about how bad your albums are. And another thing as well, if you're making lots and lots of money, I don't really think you need to worry if you put out one rubbish album in the bank, as long as the rest of your albums are decent. Anyway, however, that can't go for the next band on the list, which only made two good albums. Oh, a band that can only make two good albums? Come on, guys. And you can't even play good live. Okay? That's even better for saying that. But Nickelback's second album was an absolute disappointment. It was, I think Nickelback was, the first album was the best album they ever made. The second album was just a disappointment. What does that say? What does that say? Seriously, the rest of the back catalogue, unless there was a few albums that just made it that was a lot better, but I don't know. Now, I've read articles about Nickelback being I didn't even enjoy this album. And yes, I've given it a listen just for the video. Ugh, gosh. Seriously. Now, if you're a Nickelback fan, I feel sorry for you. If you enjoy Nickelback, I feel sorry for you. Because there's only one good album that makes the list because it has all of the anthems on. But the problem is, they don't even play these anthems live. And this is a band that doesn't know if they want to be a metal band or a pop band. So, yeah, that's very disappointing, at least. And there's nothing much to say about Nickelback. I'm really sorry. Because I'm going to say this now. I know Chad's got a really good metal voice, a really good rock voice. But when he tries to put on a pop voice, it's questionable. It is questionable. And moving on to number one is Limp Bizkit's album that they brought out in 2005 that I can't even remember the rare name of and don't really want to. Now, Limp Bizkit have been good. They are amazing. We like Limp Bizkit. But however, there's a line that needs to be drawn. Now, to say these words about Limp Bizkit are, they have been phenomenal. They've put out phenomenal anthems. However, their albums after Chocolate Starfish and Hot Dog Flavored Water One of them was bearable, listenable, and had a few anthems on. The other was just unlistenable. Now, I'm not sure where Limp Bizkit were going at this point, because, see, when they came to do Chocolate Starfish and Hot Dog Flavored Water, they were deemed as experimental punk. They were up there with Rod Stewart, man. Rod Stewart. Okay? Put that on your notes and yeah. But add this, and this is gonna give you a very horrible taste in the mouths of people that like Limp Bizkit, and especially the mouths of people who like good rock music in general. Now, Limp Bizkit were trying to, steer fans away from rock music, I guess, because they were rapping, Not only were they up there with Rod Stewart and but they were also up there with bands like The Pistols, The Clash. They were up there with those types of bands. Now, they were also up there with people like Kid Rock. And when you listen to Kid Rock, they're better than Limp Bizkit. And I love Limp Bizkit, so I can't believe I'm saying these things. Now, Hot Dogs, Chocolate Starfish and Hot Dog Flavored Water brought some experimental parts to the band, because it meant that rockers could go outside of their rock niche and go to other niches of music. They could listen to, mums and dads music and enjoy it, I guess. But they could also listen to rap music and enjoy it. And too, bands like Eminem and Dr. Dre and Public Enemy, and the list is endless, really, when it comes to hip-hop. I guess they were trying to bring that sort of Public Enemy and Slim Shady type sound to the rock world, but also what they were trying to do was fatten up the punk. Yeah. It got to the point where their music just didn't become rock. Chocolate Starfish was a rock album for most of the time, because literally there's only one or two tracks on there that aren't rock. There is even an absolute phenomenal ballad. It's the only song on there where Fred doesn't sing very much. Yeah. So back to this 2005 album. Oh, I'm putting it off, man. I'm putting it off. I don't even know what they're trying to do. Whether they're trying to go electro or a future sounding type of band, where they're trying to be sort of a cheap version of Death Grips. I mean, seriously. I think it's just one of those things. I mean, okay, in the early days, I get it. They tried to sound like Rage Against the Machine because they weren't the first rap rock band out there. They were not. They weren't the first rock band putting rap in their music, because, like I said, Rage Against the Machine did it. They weren't the first band to experiment with things, because Faith No More did it. The Red Hot Chili Peppers did it. They were sneaking funk in or whatever. So to sneak in these hip hop beats in, wasn't a new thing, really. It really, really wasn't. Because Yeah, because hip-hop bands did it. And, of course, the Beastie Boys, as you all know, were a rock-rap band, and then just became a hip-hop band. Now, obviously, if Limp Bizkit were going to go down the same road as the Beastie Boys, they should have stopped making rock albums. So, but also, if you're going to make an experimental hip-hop album, then make an experimental hip-hop album, but don't try and add in a rock track and go all proggy and psychedelic. Obviously they were trying to go down the Linkin Park route. And I understand it. I get it. There's a few Linkin Park fans that like Limp Bizkit. And there's a few Limp Bizkit fans that like Linkin Park. And yes, lots of bands have gone down that route. But unfortunately, they haven't gone down the route of, we don't know what this track's going to be type route. And, of course, just, so on and so forth. You can see why this is the number one spot. Because I like Limp Bizkit. And yet Limp Bizkit haven't put anything out disappointing. And I was trolling Spotify. And I knew I was going to do a video for you guys about albums that just should be left on the shelf. Now, if this was on a CD, this would be left on the shelf. And if I'd heard it, and if I'd been disappointed, and if it costs, say, £9.99, if this costs like £12.99 or whatever, still, this would not be worth any pounds of my money whatsoever. As to why? Because it just doesn't do anything for me at all. It's not the album that screams experimental must buy now. It's not the album that screams absolute corker in my CD collection. No, unfortunately not. It screams nothing at all. It's the most neglected album. And back in 2005, when this was on CD, or would have been on CD by then, 2005, I guess this is an album that no one's heard about. Or this is an album that, even if it was heard about it was so bad that nobody talked about it. Oh yes, that's it, ladies and gentlemen. I think I've just hit the nail on the head. Yes, it's that bad that nobody ever talked about it. Because they did really good songs. They did Rollin', they did the Mission Impossible song, they did some absolute corkers.
8:06 p.m. Mic lock button is on.
But I think just for this album, it was put in 2005, and Limp Bizkit at the time, they had just done an absolute corker of album in 2004. Now, I see this as an album where the record label would have pushed them too hard. And Limp Bizkit are a band, if you read about Limp Bizkit, they're a band that whine and whinge a hell of a lot. And I think this is a time when they were whining and whinging so much that the record label said, if you don't get in the studio, we'll whip your little asses. Yeah, I think that was the point as well. But seriously, Limp Bizkit are a band that I don't really feel sorry for, because they put out an album every single year. I go on my Spotify and I've seen the albums that weren't talked about, especially in the ones after 2012, they put out two really weird albums in 2014, 2015. But I don't know. I really, really don't know. And I'm just going to end the list by saying subscribe, like, and share. But seriously, if you own any of these albums and you like them and you love them and you cherish them, do you know what? I'm glad you love them. because, you know, there are albums in the list that, you know, there is one honourable mention, which is 7 Star by Black Sabbath, but it wasn't even a Black Sabbath album, to be fair. It had Glenn Hughes on it, and Tony Iommi wasn't playing at his best on that, to be fair. So that's all I'm going to say about that album. But really, what I'm going to say to you now, right? What I'm going to say here is I love talking about bands, right? And it doesn't hurt me one bit to talk about albums that are absolutely rubbish to the point where they're unlistenable. I mean, somebody commented on my last video about the Metallica's Saint Anger. They were like, why on earth would you listen to that? Well, you know, you've got to remember, at a time when people bought CDs, if you bought a CD and you loved it, then good on you. It wasn't a waste of money. You know, Slayer's Christ's Illusion wasn't a waste of money. But there's just albums out there that I would have never bought in, you know. I mean, there's probably tons of albums out there that I think people just wouldn't have bought. You know, you see the lists on YouTube and you think, I've got that in my CD collection and I love it. You know? And, you know, and I've not mentioned Bon Jovi's album because I wasn't really a massive fan of Bon Jovi, and Bon Jovi only ever made 2 good songs that did it for me. But what you've got to understand is that I'm talking from a time of when you had to buy CDs. You know, people probably buy music now. I mean, the last album I bought was on iTunes. But, you know, I understand that there's albums that, you know, you try and leave on the shelf or whatever. And I didn't want to talk about U2's album because, unfortunately, that ended up in people's music collections whether they wanted it or not. And obviously, you know, people didn't buy it, so it wasn't a waste of anybody's money. It was probably harsh on people's ears, I guess. But it's got a few great tracks on that album, and it's not a bad album. It's not down the complete rubbish route. It's just, you know. And apparently, if you get rid of the album, if you delete it in your library, if you take out your purchases or whatever, it still comes up. You still get that album. It's strange. You still get it. So, I don't know what's going on there. But I think U2 still want people to get that album. They still want people to listen to it, or I won't say U2, I think the label want people to have that album. It's like, seriously, we want you to have that album. We want you to have it, whether you want it or not. You still need to have this album. You know, it's the worst album in the world yet, you know. But anyway, getting back to CDs, you know, on a serious note, there was a time when my friends used to say to me, Stephen, don't buy this album, it's a waste of money. You'd be wasting your pocket money, don't buy it. So I never bought albums that were waste of money. However, Saint Anger, when people said, oh, that'll be a waste of your money, I was like, well, what's it like? I've never even heard it. Is it any good? So I bought it and heard it and loved it. I made that gamble all my... Well, actually, bought it, loved it. You know, and it was one of those things, you know, that once the Metallica album came out, I just had to get it and buy it and love it. But there's just things out there that I just thought, I didn't buy Garage Inc. because I did actually hear that, a little bit of that in the store, and yeah, I've heard bits and pieces down the road, and I nearly bought it on iTunes. I heard that it wasn't a very good album, and it just, a waste of money, and one of those things. I mean, there are lots of albums that I've sampled on iTunes and thought, oh, this is great, and this is the thing, you buy what you love. But now we have Spotify, and we pay £9.99 a month, right? And with that, £9, that's literally like, you could buy 1 or 2 CDs in Woolworths, or 2 for $10 in HMV. But now, people aren't buying CDs now, unless you're a DJ and you need them for your CD collection. But still, if you're just personal CD collection, a lot of my personal CD collection is gone. I've got some gemstones, which obviously you'd be complete nutter to get rid of your gemstones. But the thing is, and I'll say this now, right? The thing is, with Spotify, your music collection just be endless. Apple Music or whatever. And fine, if you want to go buy an album off iTunes, buy an album off iTunes. If you want to go buy an album off the internet, CD, whatever. But try and get independent artists. Buy independent artists' music, because they will be difficult to find. A lot of artists that are on YouTube, but then their albums get removed, or due to copyright reasons or whatever, if they go to a big record label, or a big record label buys them out, or the artists will remove the album because they don't want a big record label to buy them out. Anyway, I hope you've enjoyed this list, and I'll be back again with another vid.
Mic trigger. Finish recording.